We are reading Aghora, the left hand of God. We are on chapter 5, page number 156 of the book and page number 81 of the PDF.
When all of Ramakrishna's tantric sadhanas were over, he had occasion to go back to Banaras. Tilang Swami dragged him without his knowing it. Ramakrishna had one of his devotees cook up an immense quantity of rice pudding, about 10 gallons, and with his own hands, Ramakrishna fed the entire amount to Telang Swami in thanksgiving. Tilang Swami, who was a true Siddha, had no difficulty in consuming the whole cauldron full, but did not bother to look at Ramakrishna. And that was the last sadhana Ramakrishna Paramhans ever did. Tantra was the culmination of his sadhana. He did have to suffer for calling Telang Swami selfish, though. He developed cancer of the throat eventually and died. It is never wise to insult Shiva, as the priest of Benares learned about Telang Swami so many years before. So, Telang Swami taught Ramakrishna a good lesson, didn't he? Just because he did not move his lips did not mean he was not teaching Ramakrishna. He did it with his fingers. Then he caused Ramakrishna to develop the desire to learn Tantra. There was no need for Ramakrishna to have such a desire otherwise. It was all the play of Telang Swami, who contacted him from a distance and disturbed his mind to demonstrate what child's play it was to direct his consciousness. It was all the magnanimity of Telang Swami. Otherwise, Ramakrishna would never have had the opportunity to learn Tantra.
So again, great teachers don't have to say things to you. They can transmute things to you. Our brain is basically a receiver and transmitter of information. And if a person knows the correct frequency, they can put thoughts into your head. So consciously, we are only so much, and our consciousness actually is so much, right? So whenever we are doing something, we think that we are doing it, but where is the inspiration coming from? It always comes from below the line. So we are getting inspired to do certain things. Basically, that's the game that is being played over here.
Guru and disciple. You know, getting a good disciple is a real boon. To get a good guru is the best blessing, no doubt, but to get a good disciple is really rare. The rishis, of course, bring their own with them when they come, just as Krishna and Ramakrishna Paramhans did.
So now what does this mean? That today to get a disciple is okay, but to get a good disciple for a guru is a boon for the guru. And most of the time what happens is that whenever a great soul manifests over here, they bring people with them, right? So when we look at what happens in Focus 27 in the Monroe process, is that we decide with our soul group in that state of consciousness what are we going to experience over here. And the great souls actually come with people who are there to support the great soul to perform the deeds that they wanted to perform, so that and then they can also learn and grow in the same process. Okay, so you'll find that always people come with people, so it's not an accident. When we meet up, when we there's a group which is formed, it is not an accident. We've actually decided that we are here to support each other.
Once Matsyendranath, the direct disciple of Adinath, who is Lord Shiva, wanted to test his pet disciple Gorakh. You know, for a sadhu, his dhuni, fire, is his TV. He looks into it and can know anything that is going on anywhere in the world.
So again, the dhuni or the fire is a method of divination, right? So there are various methods of divination. You can cast the kauris. You can even make your own divination tool. In shamanism, we learned, you collected things and you nominated, like you collected a shell, you collected a twig, you collected a rock, you collected a pebble, uh, you collected a piece of a spoon, you collected certain things, and then you designate what it implies, each one of them, and then you make a sheet, right? And you put a boundary to that divination, and then you cast the things. What is the combination where what is falling can become a divination tool. Astrology is, of course, a divination tool. Palmistry is a divination tool. You can look at someone's face and give predictions. Even looking at the bumps in the head, you can give divination. Looking into a crystal ball, you can give divination. Looking into a mirror, you can divine stuff. You have a still this thing of water, a bowl of water, and you look into it. It can give you divination. You look at the tea leaves. You look at the coffee which is at the bottom of the mug. So there are various ways of divining stuff, right? But one another way of divining stuff is actually looking at the fire. The fire speaks, right? The different flames, what are the forms that get created in the fire? That also allows you to divine stuff. And one of the methods of an agori divining stuff is actually looking at the fire. So you'll find many of these agoris, they'll constantly stare at the fire. So what is the fire telling them?
One night, as Gorak was sitting on his dhuni, he saw his Guru Maharaj in Assam in the company of dancing girls and thought, "Oh my God, Guru Maharaj has become entangled in the samsara. He is in danger of losing everything that he has gained through his penances. I must go and save him. Matsyendra is mine. He belongs to our tribe of Naths. He is not meant for these things." Gorak had intense possessive love for his Guru Maharaj. So Gorak journeyed to Assam disguised as a minstrel. When he located his Guru Matsyendra, he was drinking wine and had two girls in his lap, one on each thigh, with a hand on one breast of each. Gorak, still in disguise, began singing a song. "Look, Matsyendra, Gorak has come. Remember who you are and forget this Maya." But Matsyendra did not want to leave. Gorak literally had to force him to start the long journey back to Girnar. Along the way, Matsyendra went off for a bath, leaving his shoulder bag with Gorak for safekeeping. Gorak thought it felt quite heavy, and when he opened it, two gold bars fell out. He became wild and thought to himself, "What is wrong with my Guru Maharaj? He is a Nath. He can piss on a rock and turn it into gold. I will not allow him to become entangled in Maya." And he threw both the bars as far as he could into the jungle.
So now, what do you think is happening? Is this really happening, or is this happening in the mind of Gorak? Right. So this is a game. Many times the teacher also plays with the student to understand how much the student actually trusts the master.
Finally, they arrived in Girnar, and Gorak said, "Now, Guru Maharaj, do you remember who you are?" He was feeling very proud of having walked 3,000 miles to save his Guru Maharaj from the clutches of the world. Suddenly, Matsyendranath passed his hand over Gorakh's head, and Gorakhnath realized that all that he had thought had been an illusion, and that in fact neither of them had even left Girnar. And then Gorakhnath realized how foolish he had been to imagine that his Guru Maharaj could ever become enmeshed in Maya. But Matsyendra loved his disciple all the more, seeing that Gorakh loved his Guru enough to search him out and force him back to his senses. Of course, you can't expect ordinary people to play like Aghoris do. Only Aghoris really know how to play about, and Naths are Aghoris. Nothing else, but to understand their play is extremely difficult. The ordinary seeker feels revulsion when he hears about using wine in rituals or seating a naked girl on the left thigh with a hand on her left breast and her hand on his penis. That is how Dattatreya got rid of all his so called disciples except one. who became the Adinath Dattatreya, was the guru of Lord Shiva himself, the Lord of Aghoris.
So many times the Aghoris do stuff to get rid of people who are not really competent of walking the path.
Of course, Dattatreya is too good, but other Indian gurus have learned from his example and have made use of it to test their own disciples. I know of a case which happened in Girnar. There was a Muslim fakir who had 1,000 disciples. When he was about to die, his disciples all began to pretend to love him a lot. So he said to himself, "Is that so? I'd better teach these buggers a lesson." So the next day he announced, "I have decided to leave this world, but before doing so, I have a desire to have sex with a female donkey. Then I'll be ready to die."
So again, the teachers playing a game with the disciples.
Of the 1,000 disciples, 990 said, "Guruji has gone crack," and left him. Only 10 remained, thinking it was some sort of joke. The next day, the fakir said to them, "Now please collect the money necessary to buy the donkey." Then those 10 realized he was serious, and 7 of them left saying, "What can this man know when he's entangled in such worldly desires?" 3 remained, and the next day the fakir said to the 3, "By my astrological calculations, I have determined a good day. Now be prepared with the donkey." Another departed after this speech, leaving 2. After the donkey was brought, one of the 2 boys realized that the old fellow was going to go through with it, and he too got fed up and left. The fakir looked at the sole survivor and said, "What are you waiting for? Better go now." The boy said, "Oh no, my lord, I want to see how you do it with this donkey." "All right," said the old man. "Bind her legs nicely so that she doesn't kick me." After this was done, he said, "Now lift her tail so that I can have a clear passage." As soon as the boy touched her tail, the donkey turned into a beautiful Shakti, a Yakshini, who went and sat on the fakir's left thigh. The old man said, "Now take this Shakti and she will teach you what you want to know." When the Shakti had passed from the fakir to the boy, the old man died.
So many times there are forces or helping spirits which are guiding these masters also. All of us have helping spirits. In shamanism, it's a very common practice to have helping spirits. And they actually help us in what we are doing. They advise us, they do things for us, they can guide us, they can protect us. So all these things are very real, okay, in the world of shamanism.
There is also the story of the head of a Hindu monastery who was getting old and nearing his end. As usual, many of the sadhus in the monastery were anxious to become Mahant, abbot, to get their hands on the lands and money that belonged to the monastery. So the old Mahant was not sure who should succeed him. Finally, one day he stood in the middle of his assembly hall and said, "How many of you would like to become Mahant?" When almost all the sadhus there indicated that they would, he turned to his throne and said, "I curse this chair that whoever sits in it will be a pauper and will be eternally ill, but will achieve all the riddhis and siddhis, supernatural powers." When suddenly none of the sadhus were willing to sit on that seat, only one person in the whole hall, sorry, only one person in the whole hall, the young boy who swept the floors and who had become a disciple of the old man, only a few days before said, "I will," because he said to himself, If I need to, I can use the riddhis and siddhis to produce wealth. And when he sat on the throne, he immediately received the old Mahan's Shakti, which astounded all the old cronies of the monastery. So the ways of these Indian gurus are not very straight.
So a guru can actually transmute and transfer power also to a disciple.
You know, actually, even though that disciple who was ready to help his guru have sex with a donkey achieved something, he was still not a really good disciple. If he had been a good disciple, he would have told his teacher, "No, I won't let you go. Stay with me. If you've created one Shakti, you can create more. I don't want to possess Shakti. I want to learn how to create Shaktis." But the Guru was far more clever than this disciple. He didn't want the boy to know that he could produce these Shaktis, and so he manifested one in the form of a Yakshini. Then the boy thought that the Guru had merely gained the Yakshini instead of having used his own Shakti to produce her.
So
At least,
again, there are always very deeper meanings to any kind of esoteric thing that a guru is doing. Okay, so we need to have our eyes, ears open whenever we are dealing with the gurus.
at least this Guru permitted his disciple to pass the test. Once there was a disciple who thought he could do anything his Guru could do. So naturally, his Guru decided to teach him a lesson. They were traveling one day, and the Guru saw to it that they had nothing to eat all day long. The disciple started to forget the mantra he was supposed to be repeating and began to listen to the rumblings of his stomach instead.
So again, survival is the first instinct. And in the spiritual path, one of the things that we need to transcend is the survival instinct. Okay. So again, as you and that's where attachment also needs to be detached. You need to be detached from eating food. You need to you know anything that you desire, anything that you are hanging on to always creates a hindrance. So over here he's feeling hungry, right? He had not yet transcended the desire or the attachment to eating food. So naturally the rumbling in the stomach took him away from his sadhana.
At length, they passed a fish seller's stall. The fish seller offered them some fish. The Guru took some and swallowed them whole. The disciple did the same. Even though he was supposed to be a vegetarian and because of his hunger began to appreciate their taste. Then the Guru calmly vomited up all the fish alive. He turned to his disciple and said, "Can you do that? If not, you have no right to eat. Get away from me. I have no use for fools like you." Sometimes, when a Guru wants to test his disciple, he can be very devious. Once there was a Guru who had a disciple who had been with him for 12 years.
Just one
The
second. One second. Hold on.